The story begins with a horrifying scene, a group of people being brutally tortured. A man pours boiling water over their bodies, tearing their skin apart. Some are burned alive, while others are held underwater for hours until they stop breathing. Among the victims is a priest named Cristovo Ferrer, who's forced to watch this unbearable torture. The reason? These people had converted to Christianity because of his preaching, and now they were paying the ultimate price. It's the year 1663, a time when Japan strictly forbade any foreign religion. Anyone caught spreading or practicing Christianity was executed without mercy. Those accused were forced to trample on the image of Jesus Christ. If they stepped on it, they were spared. But those who refused were tortured and killed. Years later, we meet two young priests, Ferrer students. An Italian priest shows them a letter supposedly sent by Ferrer from Japan. When they read it, they're shocked to learn that Ferrer had renounced his faith and converted to Buddhism. They can't believe it. Ferrer, the man who once vowed to die for Christ, could never have abandoned his faith. Refusing to accept this, the two priests decide to travel to Japan and find him. But the Italian priest warns them not to go. He tells them Japan is deadly for Christians. If they go there, they'll face the same fate as Ferrer. Still, their faith is unshaken. They insist. And finally, the Italian priest reluctantly grants them permission. The next day, they meet a Chinese man who agrees to smuggle them into Japan. Along the way, they're joined by a Japanese man named Kichijiro, whose entire family had been burned alive for becoming Christians. After a long and exhausting journey, the three finally reach Japan. Kichijiro quietly slips into the water and signals the priests to follow. But suddenly he disappears. The priests panic, thinking he's betrayed them. Moments later, a group of Japanese villagers appear, carrying torches. They tell the priests that they're indeed in Japan, but they must stay hidden. The authorities are constantly hunting down Christians. An old villager explains that persecution has become worse than ever. They live in constant fear, hiding their faith from the world. Yet they believe their prayers have been answered, because these priests have finally come to help them. One of the priests, Sebastio Rodriguez, is deeply moved by their faith. He asks how they manage to keep Jesus alive in their hearts despite such danger. The villagers tell him that they pray in secret and hide all religious items, including a small picture of Christ kept beneath a floor mat. Sebastio also learns that anyone who reports a Christian is rewarded with 100 silver coins, while betraying a priest earns 300. The villagers hide the two priests in a secret chamber inside a hut. They warn them, only open the door if they hear two knocks. Days pass. Sebastio and Francisco Garup stay hidden. Francisco grows restless and frustrated. He says these villagers live in fear, and maybe Ferrer isn't even alive. No one here has heard of him. But Sebastio refuses to lose hope. He says the villagers have no one else, and if they leave, their faith will die. One day, frustrated and suffocating inside the small chamber, Francisco steps out to get some fresh air. But before long, a few locals spot them, forcing both priests to rush back in terror. That night, someone knocks on their door, but without giving the agreed two knocks. Francisco warns Sebastio not to open it, but Sebastio, trusting his instincts, steps outside. To his surprise, the strangers are also Christians, desperate and wounded. Sebastio tends to their injuries and prays for them. They tell him that Kichijiro was the one who told them about the priests. Though the priests doubt his loyalty, the villagers explain that Kichijiro was once a devoted Christian. 8 years ago, his entire family refused to trample on Christ's image and were burned alive before his eyes. Kichijiro, terrified, stepped on it and saved himself, but ever since, he has lived with unbearable guilt. The next day, Sebastio travels to another nearby village. There, an old man tells him that Father Ferrer was last seen in Nagasaki, where captured Christians are usually taken. The villagers treat even the smallest tokens of faith as sacred, so Sebastio gives them crosses made of straw and beads from his rosary. When he tries to give one to Kichijiro, the man runs away, saying he's too great a sinner to be forgiven. Later, during confession, Kichijiro breaks down completely, revealing the years of grief and shame that have haunted him. Meanwhile, Japanese officials arrive, announcing a bounty: anyone who exposes a hidden Christian will receive silver coins. If no one comes forward in 3 days, the officials will begin arresting villagers instead. That night, the Christian leader Mokichi tells the others that they will die before betraying the priests. Sebastio realizes that his presence has put everyone's lives in danger, but Mokichi and the others insist they're ready to sacrifice themselves for their faith. Eventually, several villagers, including Mokichi and Kichijiro, volunteer to surrender. The captors demand that they trample on the image of Jesus. For villagers do so reluctantly, hoping it will save them. But then they're told to spit on the cross. None of them agree, except for one terrified man who gives in and is released. The rest are crucified on wooden crosses by the seashore, left to die as the rising tide lashes against them like whips. One by one, they perish, all except Mokichi, who clings to life in agony for 4 long days before finally dying. His body is then burned, to prevent a Christian burial. Witnessing this, Sebastio's spirit breaks. He begins to question everything. Do Jesus and God hear the screams of the dying? Francisco, losing hope, urges Sebastio to leave Japan. But Sebastio refuses. He's determined to find Ferrer, no matter what. The two part ways. Sebastio continues alone, only to discover that Kichijiro's village has been destroyed and abandoned. Weak, exhausted, and delirious, he's eventually betrayed once again, this time by Kichijiro himself, who accepts silver coins from the Japanese in exchange for turning him in. Surrounded and captured, Sebastio is shocked to see how calm the other Christian prisoners appear. Their leader, Inoue, tells him they don't hate him, but insists there's no place for Jesus in Japan. If Sebastio renounces his faith, he'll be spared. A translator named Asano warns him that he'll be tortured, just as Ferrer once was. Later, Sebastio is paraded through the village, mocked, and pelted with stones. Inoue tells him that Christianity may thrive in Portugal or Spain, but it cannot take root in Japan. Just as a tree from one land cannot survive in the soil of another, he says, your faith cannot flourish here. Sebastio argues that there were once over 300,000 Christians in Japan. But Inoue replies, they were all tortured, killed, or forced to convert. Then, tired of arguing, he orders Sebastio back to his cell. Later, Kichijiro visits him, insisting he didn't betray him for money. But the guards beat him and throw him into the cell too. Other prisoners warn Sebastio not to trust him, yet he still forgives him. The next day, prisoners are again forced to trample on Christ's image. Some refuse and are executed. Others, trembling with fear, obey. Inoue then tells Sebastio a story about a man who had 4 beautiful wives, but they constantly fought. So the man expelled them all and finally found peace. Sebastio agrees the man was wise. Inoue smiles and explains, that man is Japan. The 4 wives are England, Spain, Holland, and Portugal. Just as he cast them out, Japan must do the same with foreign nations and their religions. The next day, Sebastio is shown young Christian girls being dragged away. Then he sees his companion, Francisco Garup, captured. The officials tie the girls and threaten Francisco. If he renounces his faith, they'll spare them. But Francisco refuses. The girls are drowned before his eyes, and all he can do is watch, powerless. The next day, Francisco is taken to a temple. There he sees Father Ferreira, the very man who was once his idol. But now, there's shame in Ferreira's eyes. He tells Francisco that after enduring endless torture, day and night, he too stepped on the image of Christ and renounced his faith. Francisco's heart shatters. Ferreira has now come to break his spirit as well. He says, Christianity cannot survive in Japan. Your faith will only bring suffering. Francisco protests, their deaths cannot be in vain. Ferreira replies, they didn't die for Christ. They died for you, because you told them to. Their blood is on your hands. Those words shake Francisco to his core. That night he's dragged outside. Before him, innocent Christians are being tortured, their screams echoing through the darkness. Ferreira leans close and whispers, there's only one way to end this. Step on the image of Christ. The soldiers place the image before him. Francisco looks at it, as if the entire world rests on this one decision. The cries ring in his ears, his heart breaks apart. With tears streaming down his face, he slowly places his foot on it. At that very moment, the torture stops. The Christians are freed. Years later, Francisco and Ferreira now live under Japanese rule. Their job is to inspect goods arriving from foreign ships, ensuring there are no Christian symbols or objects hidden inside. They are now erasing the very faith that once defined their lives. One day, officials inform him that a local officer has died. Francisco must now take his name, his wife, and his family. Without resistance, he accepts. 10 years pass. He's fluent in Japanese now, living an entirely new life. Kichijiro now works under him. One day, Kichijiro kneels before him and pleads, "Father, forgive me." Francisco answers softly, "I am no longer a priest." Yet something stirs inside him. He listens to Kichijiro's confession, because the priest within him is still alive. In the end, Francisco spends the rest of his life in Japan, a man broken on the outside, yet holding on to a faint spark of faith deep within. When he dies, his body is cremated according to Japanese tradition. But in the ashes, clutched tightly in his hand, they find a small cross, a symbol of the faith he renounced before the world, but never in his heart.